Wait, I forgot to
we're live.
Wait, we're still here. Wait, which is the right video?
We didn't have a message when we left. Oh, very odd.
And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and get real high and I think to the top of my lungs, what's going on? And so I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed to get it out of what's in my head and I feel it. And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and get real high and I feel to the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I say,
Hello! Welcome to the show, everybody. Hello, all the Bogan Raiders. I guess Bancroft's just finished. Hello, everyone. We're gonna do the kind of like slow start thing where we hang out for a bit because like Rini and Phil aren't here, and like this feels naked. All this extra space around the edge of the screen, like it feels like there's something missing.
Just the two of us.
You
Just
and
sitting
I.
here, just a couple of guys scratching our balls. No
Just
big
a
deal.
couple of guys doing guy things. How you doing, Noel?
Just a couple of guys slobbering on cigars, making eye contact.
Hey, speaking of cigars, I've actually been trying to learn how to fucking smoke my pipe that I originally bought just for cosmetic reasons. Like, but I can totally try and smoke it. Like, watch this. I don't cough or choke or anything. Do you think Rainy and Phil know that it's a go time or not? Phil's probably in the shower right now.
Yeah. I don't know what they're doing.
You reading the chat? Let's say hello to
Bretsky the Great says, "Is this my new place?" It is. Check out if I go like this. you can see my Columbo box DVD set right there, down in the corner.
Thumb
right there.
There we go. Eventually, get it. It's like when you try and point to your own name in your thing, you always point the wrong way, and then you have to go this way. Like, there you go.
I think it might. Yeah, it might switch it if I hold up this hand. Yeah, it's not like a mirror. They switch it or whatever. So
Watch this. Watch this. Watch. Come on. What the fuck?
you're actually puffing the snooga. Puffing
Yeah.
the hooch.
I've been trying to learn how to do it without coughing. But yeah, fuck that. But yeah,
Yeah.
hey everyone, welcome to Creative Block. Today we're supposed to be talking about, well, it's called like talking about talking, which I think might mislead people into thinking we're going to be exclusively talking about dialogue. But yeah, like the whole theme of today's show is I've watching some interviews. I found an interview with this guy called Jack Grapes, and he has this kind of like theory on the 5 tones of the 5 tonal voices of writing. And for him, it seems to be applied to writing, like if you're writing a book, a novel, a poem. But I think we can extrapolate it out to mean more about comics, and like we can take the ideas in it and maybe turn them from just text-based stuff into visual-based stuff. But yeah, like I'm a bit apprehensive because at the same time, I think it might be too simple and boring, but also then slightly too complex and hard to grasp, which are like 2 complete opposites.
You know what you're doing right now? You're talking about talking.
Yeah, I should. I'm nesting my talkings. But
And what
yeah.
I just did was I talked about you talking about talking.
And now I don't know how to talk about you talking about me talking about you talking.
Too much. We went too far.
We went too far. We incepted too far. But yeah, should we just start? We've got to wait until Phil and Rini get here. Should we just talk about a week or something?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, my week has been making shorts, preparing for this show, wishing I was drawing, hardly streaming when I feel like I should, not renovating my house because I don't have one yet, unlike some people. But yeah, my week's kind of like flown by. Yeah, FKA says talkception. Give us a bonk, Jake. I wonder if we even have the bonk sound engaged.
Emotional damage.
Nope, that wasn't the right one. Hold on. There it is. Yeah, I got all
The
my.
chat is saying I look different. It's because there's a giant window right here, so it's natural light, but it's cold, so it's cool. Like light temperature is cold coming in. I guess that's a warmer light, but it's a giant light right in front of me, so it's the first time my face has been properly lit.
Yeah,
And
like
so-
it makes it look like you have different facial structure. It's really weird.
Mhm.
You looked just as like a different novel when you were doing that interview with that like movie guy. Like when you're in that other room in that other setup, that looked like a really smart setup.
Yeah. So I guess that's the lesson to you. You look different in any situation. Today though, I walked to there's a like hip grocery store that's only like one room. It's called McPhee's, and it's twice as expensive, but super hip. They have mostly Asian stuff and some kind of weird stuff, and all the cool kids go there. So I walk over to that, and there was like a young hipster girl was at the counter, and she was very nice. And I like was kind of striking up a little conversation with her, and she wasn't having it. I'm like, oh, am I omitting creepy vibes or something? Why isn't she like, she's giving me 1-word responses to like everything. I was like, dang.
I hate when you're just trying to be out there acting like a normal person, but you end up having to interact with a woman and she seems to react as if you're being a creep. And it's like, I'm really not trying to be a creep. Stop trying to interpret this as creepiness.
Yeah. Like one of my questions, I was like, do you guys sell greens here? Because I buy kale once in a while. Like, I'll just buy it from McPhee's if they sell it. But I didn't spot it, but I spot some other stuff. And she's like, no. And I was like, okay.
Stop trying to make small talk with me.
Yeah.
Speaking of making small talk with a lady, welcome, Rini.
Hey, Rini.
There we go. Welcome. Anyway,
Wait, so
Damn it, stupid microphone.
I was
You
like,
have it turned down.
it's Phil, but he changed his profile pic.
That would be so fucked up. Hey, is that your new house?
Yeah, this is my house. And I think I showed people, but there's my box set of Columbo right there. Right on the wall.
Awesome.
you got to lift your
Oh, yeah.
You know what
entire
else?
computer
When I
up.
moved, I found something kind of funny too. Let me see if I can find it. It's where did I put it? It's like secret.
Secret.
It's
Is it a
somewhere-
secret compartment or something?
Yeah.
I always wanted like a bookshelf that had a secret compartment.
I always
Steve, my 2020 election ballot.
What?
why are you
What?
why are you doxing your new house?
That's
No,
not
this
dr-
is
That's
this is
an
my old house.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
2020.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you doxing your friends that you were staying with.
Too bad for them.
I always wanted a house where it was like what a house hidden inside another house. Like you had the normal house, but there was like a second house hidden, like slotted into it, like Tetris pieces. And only you would have access to like the second house, but there was like a whole other living room there. Do you know what I mean? And it was like hidden between the walls. Like you'd have a room too far apart, and people who were coming and visiting would be like, isn't there like a room here? And you'd be like, no, don't worry about that. It's just a cupboard. And then you have like a whole other house you can retreat to, which is kind of stupid if you would live on your own, that you would have like a second house to hide from yourself main house.
There is actually, I don't remember the name. I think it's in Norway or something, but there's a family that built this house that's a normal house within a glass house. And I think it's like this, it's huge too. It's like, it looks like a greenhouse, like all glass, and just a shell of a glass house, and inside is another house because they, it's fucking cold as shit there and they want to keep warm. It's really cool.
So it's like basically double glazing the building.
Yeah, and it's so they can go outdoors and stuff, and somehow they made it off grid, and it's like got its own water recycling system. It's like they're rich people clearly, but it's still pretty cool. And I think they did that just somewhere in Britain as well. Like they were trying to conserve a really old building, so they built a shell outside of it. Anyways, getting way distracted. But
They build a giant greenhouse around some old listed building to protect it. We
That
must
would-
protect our heritage.
yeah, but I think that stuff is so cool. It's like this modern shell around an old like crumbling thing. But ruins are cool.
Well, pretty much the only thing that stays around old crumbling buildings around here is like shit tons of scaffolding. Like if you walk through a city, like you'll think like, oh, I'll go to London and I'll see this like nice city. You just see shit tons of scaffolding, almost like if you're going to New York and there's like usually a bunch of scaffolding on buildings there too.
Just have to say, it sounds like New York, like permanent scaffolding everywhere.
It's exactly the same. I almost think it's like some kind of money laundering scheme that they like. all these scaffolding companies, like imagine if all of their scaffolding wasn't being used. They would have to like
Yeah.
rent warehouse space or something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like almost the city itself is the warehouse for their scaffolding. Like they put it up on a building and like leave it there for ages and only finish a job when they're ready to like take another job or something, and they keep extending how long it's going to take so they can like shuffle their scaffolding around the city.
You figured it out. You figured it out. Their scheme.
I got the scaffolding scheme. But should we start or should we wait for Phil? Here's the conundrum. Should we get going or should we wait for Phil?
Give him 3 minutes.
Okay,
3 minutes.
3
Yes.
minutes.
3 minutes,
I I suppose, seeing as I've got a little bit of time, I can show people something. So, apparently, America really looks like it's going to remove the, the C word restrictions around travel. So,
yes.
foreigners might be able to come in without having to have the old laffy happy juice shoved into their veins.
Yeah, it should be the end of this month, right?
The 11th. It's supposed to expire on the 11th, so I'm waiting to the 11th. If it expires and people from filthy, dirty foreigners can come into the country, that means the C word. You know the word. You know the word. Because if they let foreigners into the country, I'm gonna book like my ticket to go to Tampa as soon as possible. Like I'm gonna try and get
Yay.
on that shit. And like I've said for like months ago, if I was gonna go to Tampa, that I'm gonna have some enamel pins made up, and every CG that I meet at the convention, I'm gonna give one of them away for free.
Oh my gosh. I'm a
So-
little
So, like,
wizard.
so this is the design of the pin. It's going to be like 27 millimeters long or something. So yeah, I thought you guys might like to see the pin that you could get for free if you go to Tampa and I go to Tampa. But like this is also the pin I would use for like if I eventually get monetized. If you like become a member of the channel, you'd get one of these pins too.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
But yeah, like I've made a bunch of them before. Where are they? I can never find anything.
I should do something like that.
Enamel pins are awesome. They've gone up so much in price to produce. It's literally double the price from when I last made some.
Oh,
Near around.
I gotta hit up my factory. Maybe I don't know.
Reni's Giant Factory.
Yeah. No, I know people, but they're overseas. Yeah.
Look who showed up. Look who
Oh,
showed up.
hey, Phil, I told you guys 3
Hello.
minutes. Like,
3
minutes.
minutes. You're like psychic. what was
Phil texted me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Cheater.
Welcome, Phil.
Hello.
up?
Nice hat.
How's it going? How's your week
Jake.
been?
Jake, there's 2 L's in my name. God damn it!
What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?
In the poll that I'm running away with, of
Oh.
course.
I'm sorry,
So-
Phil. Oh yeah, guys, check out the vote in the chat. Like I was gonna use these for something, but now I've decided not. I decided not to earlier, and I still want to do the popularity contest because we did the popularity contest on the first episode, and we haven't done it since. I thought it was like time for a refresher. It's wonderful to see myself in last place.
Yeah, gotta
Let's
keep you
see how
humble.
things have shifted.
I'm ready.
Everybody vote for me.
Everyone already. Oh my God, Phil is running away with it.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
right, brother. And I wasn't even. I just got here. And I was late. I apologize, chat, for being late. I was driving over here, racing. And yeah, that's my excuse. Narwhal, you look thinner today. Is that true?
I shaved my beard.
Oh,
That's the
what-
other thing.
The
That I
beard.
moved. I have a weird window right here giving me big window light.
Yeah,
like it.
what is that behind? That's a window. Is that like reflecting the rest of your room?
Big wind energy.
It
No, it's
literally
just,
looks like your
right
skull
here, what you
changed.
guys can't see is a giant window, and it's so big that I can see everything. It's almost too big, but it's nice. But a little raccoon scuttled by last night, and I was like, maybe I could like be the guy who feeds raccoons to get like, raccoons.
You end up with like all the animals infesting your house. Like there's moss growing on your walls, there's raccoons running through the building, like mice are on your hands as you like
Yeah.
wake up.
I was like, what even bad comes from feeding raccoons? Because you're not supposed to. And I was like, I don't know, like maybe they take advantage of you and trash your garbage, or they tell their friends and you got like 20 raccoons, you're crazy raccoon lady at that point or whatever. But it sounds like the only thing people are really scared of is rabies, and that doesn't really scare me so much. I don't care about rabies.
Yeah, I reckon
rabies is kind of a big problem.
you
it's
could beat the
pretty-
rabies if you got it. You should try it out. You should try and get rabies for real. It's like I bet if you had rabies and then AIDS too at the same time, they would both counteract each other, and you basically become immune from both.
That's exactly
Yeah.
how science works.
I got desensitized to like scary diseases because of COVID. So no disease scares me anymore, and maybe that's not good. But yeah.
That's
You
not
turn into
good.
You turn into that big baby from fucking. Is that a robot?
Yeah, you're
You were
robotic.
roboting.
Yeah. Sorry, what'd you say, Phil?
That's my bad. I said you're gonna turn that big baby from Akira.
Oh, yeah. If I
Akira
could.
baby monster. Yeah, someone was already on it. because of the AIDS 2 versus rabies. AIDS bees 2. Anyway,
Don't get rabies, everybody.
go on and get rabies and AIDS.
It's a serious problem.
Okay, so
It would be a sad way to go. Like if I got rabies, I'd be like, shit, I should have never befriended that raccoon. Why did I do that?
Yeah, but it's like, but it was so cute and fluffy.
I regret nothing. My final words. Tell
Yeah.
little buddy that I'm sorry.
is your
Man,
frothing
rabies
at the
is
mouth?
fucking yeah. It's a fucking. It's not just you go crazy and you froth at the mouth. It's like the first signs of it is a fear of water. There are videos of people who have rabies, and it's like if you don't immediately treat it, it's too late, right? And they're like terrified of a cup of water. It's weird.
You're
Creepy.
scared of water.
Yeah, it gives you. It's called hydrophobia.
Wow.
It's
It's
wild.
I've always thought rabies was basically the closest thing you could have to being a zombie.
It gets like that towards the end. Yeah.
We have a
Okay.
topic tonight.
Brain work.
We do. Yes. I was waiting.
So, anyways,
Anyway, okay. So we do have a topic tonight. It's about the 5 different voices of writing. And people may think this is completely about dialogue. It kind of isn't, but we can talk about dialogue. These 5 principles of writing, it's from an interview with a guy called Jack Grapes. I have some clips lined up. And I want to explore the theory behind what he's saying. And then I kind of like think we can extrapolate that out into like what it could mean for the visual storytelling in comics and stuff. But yeah, I have a video prepared to kind of illustrate the point. And you guys, you got to let me know what might be wrong with this video. And you also have to tell me when to stop and you get basically pissed off and no longer want to listen to it anymore. So
okay, stop right now. I'm annoyed.
Oh my god.
you're the one who's going to get most annoyed, Rini. But
The repetition just more octave.
Yeah, just gonna keep on going down.
something's weird about this. I don't know. It doesn't usually go like this.
Now I'm
Jake's-
intrigued to see how far it'll go.
Jake's mission in life to annoy me as much as possible every week.
Rini's gonna get so annoyed. She hates
What does
sounds
this
like
have to do with dialogue?
Well, it's got everything to do with.
But there's a twist.
No, look how long it is, guy. Are you sure you want me to keep going? The chat's saying stop. Pending doom. Really pushing the limits.
It's good. Seriously, gonna stop. It can't keep going.
I mean, it will eventually
it's gonna
stop.
exit what our ears can hear.
Yeah.
Whenever
Let's
you
go out of
guys.
the zone of human hearing.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it changed. Is it just gonna
A
keep a
loop.
looping?
It's looping.
Okay. You were supposed to say. This bit isn't supposed to be here. It was supposed to go on forever, and that's the point. The next bit is like, I kind of trolled a little bit at the end. Like.
Why are you like this?
Stagnation.
You
That does
should-
make me chuckle.
Okay, I think
There you
we're
go.
fine. We're good. We're good. We get the idea.
Okay. So like what was
Fucking
kind of
hell.
what was kind of wrong with that video? I mean, it didn't sound like how it's supposed to sound like.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean,
You made
just
it?
dropping octaves. The same repetition. Even more depressing and depressing every.
There was no progression.
It was a
Uh,
troll.
Was it
Yeah.
ingression?
Well, like, okay, so the idea was that completely removed all of the tonal dynamics from the piece. It just stayed on doing the same thing, and you were in like one voice, one tone, and then it never changed. And what we're going to go into now is like how you would do the opposite of this in your writing. But yeah, so
The end. End of presentation.
no,
Show's
that's
over.
no. Okay, so I'm gonna play the first. So like the idea is that like writing can have different tones, and there's 5 of them. But yeah, I'll play the first clip of this interview too.
There are 4 basic voices or tonalities.
Well, 5 if you count your own voice, your natural speaking voice as a writer. So the other 4, there's only 4 other tonalities in all of Western literature. So the 4 tones that I have names for them. Straight talk means you're not in the deep voice. You're very chit-chatty. Everything is, boy, you won't believe what happened last night. I mean, there I am standing on the corner, and would you believe it? A guy comes up and he's got a cigarette in his nose, and I thought, very chit-chatty. The opposite of the deep voice.
Okay, so that's the first one. Do we understand that?
Yes.
So chit chatty. Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
Game of Thrones guy?
What? No, that's not him.
Was that George R. R. Martin? No, I wouldn't put Rainey through having to listen to George R. R. Martin.
Thank you. It would sound like this.
Hey, what's the thing? All right,
But-
go on. Yeah, I get it.
So yeah, like the first voice is so it feels like,
Fucking-
okay, is this how
Fucking
basic it's gonna be?
disrespect.
I'm out.
Are you out?
No.
Okay,
There was a
so
knock at the door. He just had to say hi to the Mormons.
we
Yeah.
got Amazon delivery.
Mormons.
But yeah, that is kind of like you're not speaking how we would usually speak. You're kind of like bullshitting and making small talk and like performing, you know what I mean? Like having a more high-pitched voice, like, oh, would you believe this happened today? And then this happened, like, oh my god, you would, that kind of thing. Like you're trying to story tell.
Would that be like the Weasel, like Pauly Shore? Like, what's up, buddy?
Maybe. But it's supposed to be the opposite from your talking voice. Like if we're having a conversation, we're actually like talking as us, and the other one is like, I'm avoiding talking to you. At least that's the way I understand it.
I can see that. I can kind of see how I've done that in my own writing. I'm curious to see what the other ones are, because I was gonna watch a video and then Jake told us not to watch it.
I think Noel watched it, but like it's just like small talk. But yeah, should I go on to you ready for the next one?
Yes, let's go.
Bring it on.
Yeah, Danky Frankie says it's small talk. Cool. Yes, I think so. It's like stating information almost. But yeah, I'll play there.
The second voice is that writerly, poetic style that a lot of writers use, and that a lot of writers think you're supposed to write like that, where you give metaphors and similes and fancy description and all that kind of stuff. And on a scale of 1 to 10, you could do it in a subtle way, or you could do it in a very extreme way. So, for instance, if you read William Faulkner or Marcel Proust, these are writers who write in a very ornate style, almost at a 10. But then there are other writers who use a little bit of style, but they're only at a 1 or a 2. But it's all not writing in your natural voice. It's a heightened style.
So like, did that communicate well? That's kind of like if you're using fancy prose
Mhm.
or like
is this talking about writer voice or just like voices for characters?
yeah, this is like the voice of the writer. Like this is if you were
okay.
writing a piece, not like a dialogue. Like
I thought
someone
it was a dialogue. Okay. that's
oh
different.
no, we can talk about dialogue too, but like this second one is kind of like you know how people would kind of portray old-timey people talking, and they would have like a bunch of fancily composed sentences that someone wouldn't be able to think of in advance. It's kind of like that style.
Oh yeah, it's like the meme of acquire currency, disregard females. Get
Kind
money,
of.
fuck
Kind
bitches.
of.
Well, it would be like flowery writing, or if you've heard the term purple prose, is very ornate and flowery writing. And a lot of the time, like if you read like old pulps, a lot of that's like the shadow speaks in purple prose. It's very grand, but also at the same time, if you overuse it a lot, it could be not inflated. Like it's like inflated, so there's like nothing in there, but it's overinflated.
Yeah, like one example is kind of like how in V for Vendetta, when the guy goes off with like all of the V's, the verisimilitude,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he speaks like total purple prose from V for Vendetta, so it's very ornate.
yeah. Okay, you ready for the third one? I hope this.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, cool.
And the third voice is the oldest technique in all of writing. It's where you repeat. It goes to the Bible. It goes all the way back to the Bible, where you repeat things 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So a lot of your great politicians or preachers will use this voice. I have a dream that one day blah 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 blah. I have a dream that one day blah 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 blah. I have a dream that one day blah blah blah. Nobody remembers the blah blah blah, but everybody remembers the I have a dream speech, because by repeating it, he makes that a kind of drumbeat, a rhythmic pulse. So that is the most ancient form of writing. That was how people remembered, because people couldn't read. So even if someone wrote something, they would perform it. The repetition of phrases, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, from Charles Dickens. Or the Bible, there's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to sow, a time to bud and a time, the repetition creates a way to remember, because people couldn't read, so you had to know to remember. So that device, that repetition, is a technique that can be used in more ways than you realize.
Yeah.
So I love repetition. I think that comes from my love of poetry, and I see that a lot, and like we was talking about with politicians, or just very charismatic people, even on the internet. Like if you listen to like Jordan Peterson, he repeats stuff. Even when Ethan is talking on streams and stuff, he'll say something and make the point, and he'll pause and then say that last point again. And whenever I hear that in someone else's speech, it sounds significant, right? So I always am trying to consciously try to speak like that, because
that's really interesting. Like you're trying to incorporate it into the way you speak. Like, are you doing that in real life or just on streams? Like, because does it give you like a power to your voice?
I think I have not done it at all, but it's a thing I want to do. I just have not, and I'm just failing at it. But I kind of see that as someone that's like well spoken,
What's going on with the horns? That's great.
I have a new headdress.
She's going full demon mode.
Anyways, yeah, the repetition thing, I think that's just a good way to make oral presentations memorable, and that makes sense that that's the oldest form of writing, because like that guy said, people didn't used to be literate. So if you read really ancient poetry like Gilgamesh or the Mahabharata, even I can think of Chinese poetry, it's like that's the whole point of having rhymes and having a set stanzas and repeating phrases, because everything was mimetic.
Right.
Cool.
It's compelling, and we talked about this last week a little bit. I touched on it. If you have that repetition, you could break the repetition, and that makes for another standout moment in what you're saying, in storytelling, or even in speech as well.
One of the examples that I kind of have, I have like it's a scene from like Pulp Fiction. Tarantino dialogue seems to have a lot of intricate repeating that isn't just the I have a dream, that like that full on repeating. It's like, do I look like a bitch? Do I look like a bitch to you? Like, why are you talking to me as if I'm a bitch or something like that? Like, I can't remember the scene exactly, but it's like, I wrote a little like example here. It's like, imagine a character saying like, people have issues with what you're doing. What you're doing can't be done anymore. what you're doing needs to stop. Like you can even like repeat certain like words that can come up, like a character can have like a certain thing they do, and you anyway.
Yeah, and I think too, it almost never works less than 3 times. So
Yeah.
if you just did it twice, especially in literature or comic books, then it looks like a grammatical error of redundancy.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
So using the same phrase or word too close together twice in a row is always a no-no in my book. Like, it stands out to me if I'm reading something in my own work, and I'll change it. I actually I shot a script over to Kemosabe, who's my editor, and he caught something out of one of my things, and I'm like, yeah, I hate that stuff. So yeah, the redundancy, it will it trigger in people's mind of being like, he just used that, you know. But any more than that, I think it could be used effectively.
Yeah, like 3 or more. I wonder if there's a maximum you could get to. Like, if you did it 7 times, it would be like the da 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 da. Like, come on, man, change it up. But like the idea of this, like, there's like a couple left, but the idea is that in writing and in dialogue, even that you kind of create drama in a story by shifting between all these different tones. Like, someone could be speaking in the deep voice, which is one of these, which is just when you're talking normally, like your normal talking voice, and then you could whip out like a repeated thing, or then occasionally say something like ornate. And yeah, the drama is supposed to be like comes from the shift between them. But I'll play the next one.
Then the fourth one is actually not a voice. It's where you use language in a non-communicative way, where you're writing almost stream of consciousness or absurd images, or maybe you've got someone who's got Alzheimer's or someone who's drunk, but it's language that is not used in a normal linear way. And poets and writers have been doing that for at least over 100 years, started in France with Arthur Rimbaud and Baudelaire, and then the Russian futurists were doing it. They created a thing called Zom poetry that didn't make sense, and so forth. So any writing that is kind of like modern art, where you have cubism or abstract painting or abstract expressionism, where you're just seeing a lot of crap on the canvas. Well, what would be the analogy of that with words? Well, it would be words and sentences that don't make any sense.
I totally thought we were talking more about like dialogue and character voice, but this is pretty interesting as well.
I think we can shift into that, because like I don't know how long we're gonna be able to
Well, yeah, I mean, so, like
process this, but
maybe you guys, I don't really write prose because I know I suck at it. But if you guys want to continue talking about prose, that would be cool. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about like what voices you guys use for prose or poetry.
So that specific thing, the only example I could think of for the gibberish thing that I've encountered would be Lewis Carroll's nonsensical stuff from his Alice in Wonderland stuff. You know, like in the Jabberwocky poem, he just makes up words that fit the rhyme scheme that don't mean anything, but they sound like they mean things, right? Like the poem is, "'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe." That's nothing. It's nonsense, right? But it sounds like something. Just brillig and slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy where the borrow groves and the mumrads outgrabe. Like, outgrabe, not a word. So he does that, and the poem's awesome. And that's a reason it's awesome, is because he's just using auditory techniques to kind of make your brain fire and be like, oh, this is a noun, this is a verb, an adjective, and stuff like that, even though it's not. It's just nonsense, which is really fun. But that's the only thing that I can think of with that.
Yeah, like in the literal sense, like you could use it for someone who's drunk, or as like someone who has dementia and stuff, like someone who's like losing consciousness even. But yeah, yeah, it does get used in more of a poetic sense, but it does also track with some forms of dialogue too.
You know, that reminds me of when I lived in Portland with my cousin. If we were leaving to go to the grocery store, I would want to say to him, like, did you lock the door? But I don't want to say that out loud because if a homeless guy hears it in the bushes, then he'll know we're gone or whatever, or we're leaving. So I started saying, Laucus du Daucus, and he goes,
Oh, what? Is that like sibling talk that some people have that only each other understands?
yeah.
It's like Narwhal Pig Latin.
I know.
Yeah.
You made up a new language with your cousin.
For locking the door for hobo protection language.
Yeah.
Yeah, we say it for coffee too. We go Pautus of Caucus for a pot of coffee.
Very good. But it's weird that this is like on this guy's list for tonality of dialogue, because I would never have thought of that.
Yeah, like the idea is that you won't be able to find any tonalities that are outside of these 5.
And I like your initial metaphor of music. Actually, that's pretty fascinating. That music is like that, where even if it's like verse, chorus, verse, or throwing the bridge in there, you got to change that shit up, or it doesn't work for your brain. You get bored or whatever. And that's, I can see stories being kind of like that. There's a guy in CG, Brendan Swan. He did one of my favorite CG books called Disintegration Street. And I've interviewed him, and he says his influences are all music, and he tries to write stories like albums, and he names the chapters tracks, like track 1, track 2. And I think one of his biggest influences is Bowie stuff. And I kind of wanted to listen to some old Bowie to hear, like, if you can imagine like an album almost being like a narrative kind of thing. But it is a good thing to take inspiration from, because you immediately get like some pretty original stories. It's one way to kind of break out of 3-act structure if you want to. You don't have to, because 3-act structure works pretty great. But
cool. So like, yeah, so far we've had like performative chit chat, just relaying information, the ornate poetic style, then it was the repetition, and then like gibberish, and then this last one is supposed to be like your character's actual voice, like you as if you're talking. So I'll play this one now.
Deep voice. And is there more than one inside of a writer at any time?
You're talking about characters, right?
Deep voice.
Well,
What
there's
is
only
that?
one deep voice.
There's only one. Okay.
Yes, the deep voice. Now, I could be the deep voice of one character, I could be the deep voice of another, and there might be a difference in the character and how it would manifest, but the deep voice means you're coming from the deep gut. You're not, you're connected.
But this isn't deep throat and calling in a tip to Woodward and Bernstein. This is a real person inside. This is who you are, what you really feel. This isn't you pontificating. I'm confused. I'm sorry. I don't know what deep voice means.
It's talking in a way in which you're not entertaining anymore. You're just coming from what you feel in a deep, deep way, and you're not trying to be a writer. You're not trying to perform. You're just connected. When you're not in the deep voice, you're telling a story and you're entertaining. It was a cold night and the man walked out. You're trying to entertain people. But when you're in the deep voice, you are connected in a true way to an emotion. You're connected to an emotion. So you're not just telling the story like a storyteller. You're connected to an emotion. It's like that commercial with the guy about when E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens. When you hear the deep voice, you listen. You could be in a crowded restaurant and everybody's talking, and then someone at the next table starts to whisper, and suddenly your ear catches it. You don't know what they're saying, but you hear the tone of voice, and you go, oh, this is going to be personal. This is going to be deep and emotional. This is not just going to be him telling a story about how he spilled water on himself. It's going to be deep.
That reminds me maybe a little bit of a tangent, but that kind of does remind me when you're talking about dialogue. I was thinking the one thing I sort of was bringing to the meeting was one idea, and it was that dialogue, what we think of as great dialogue, a lot of times it's not like a huge long line. It'll be like one little word. We'll be like, oh, that dialogue was so sweet. Like I was trying to think of an example, like what's a classic great line? Like one of them from The Matrix when Keanu says like, I know Kung Fu. Like that's like a great line. And that's not like an epic like thing that is written. Like Tarantino's kind of the exception where he actually will write stuff where you're like, oh, that was like really well said or whatever. But it's also just like it does seem like if you get more and more into like the empathy of the situation or whatever, then people are just saying whatever they're saying, but you'll have some good stuff come out of that.
Yeah, like that whole I know Kung Fu bit, that's totally like the character has a realization and he just says it. He's not performing, he's just shit, I know Kung Fu now. Like
yeah, it almost is the deep voice.
yeah, like the way that I've tried to like think about this one is like you can almost think of it as like someone confessing something or like even telling someone off. They're just like they're no longer varnishing what they're saying, they're just getting it out kind of thing. It's pretty much like how we all talk on streams.
Yeah, that line could be terrible too, with a lot of different contexts. Like I don't know if he was like, what? I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know. The way he was explaining that was confusing to me. It seemed like he's equating it to writing, but also real life, and you as a writer not being a storyteller, which seems a bit pretentious to me and kind of inflated, because when you're telling stories, you're a storyteller and you're supposed to entertain. And I feel like the deep voice thing would be something that a reader puts on a writer instead of a writer being like, okay, I'm going into my deep voice now. Like it would be something like a critic points out, it's like, oh, there's the emotional connection that this person's trying to convey. You know? So I think after I've been trying to parse it because it was a bit hard to like understand, and I wanted to be able to like convey it. So like what I think it is how if you're chit-chatting, you'd be telling a story. Like, okay, imagine you're narrating like a news reporter does, and like a news reporter is giving like the news report, and then say the news reporter like something bad happens and he laughs and he makes a mistake and then he's like, oh, sorry everyone, and then gets back to it. Like in that moment where he breaks the news reporter role, like the first voice, like he takes on it's just as if you're talking. It's like you talking as a character.
But what is I was thinking there has to be more voices than that, because who even is this guy? I don't know what he's written before.
Well, his hat says playwright.
Yes.
Oh, so that makes him a credible source. I'm not saying what his presentation of voices and writing it is completely null and void. It just seems like there should be more, because, for example, the first thing I can think of is if you're writing like an academic paper, you're just presenting information. That's technically a voice as well, but that's not how you would normally talk.
Hey, that's kind of that's a good way of putting it. Like, I wonder if that would fit into any of them. Like, would that be the first voice of just relaying information, like straight talking about something?
But it's not how you would normally talk. So it seems like maybe, I don't know, but it also seems like it would be something different. And like I can think of other examples outside of Western literature, but I guess we're talking about specifically English literature right now.
I mean, that's an interesting thing. If these would even convert to Eastern literature, and if there are a different voice you could find there, if you could like convert that back again to like a Western thing.
I think most of them do, but with the whole way Chinese works, specific Chinese, because I know Chinese the best. It just the language works differently, and there's levels of poeticness or formality because when you write before the modern era, like about 100 or 200 years ago, nobody who was literate would write the way they talk. It was a whole movement to start writing the way you talk in Chinese. And before that, like everything was you would write in poetry, even for record keeping, even for like your diary, you would write in verse. But there's different levels of verse and different levels of like encoding the language. And so I think for Chinese, it's more divided by how it's called Wenyan. Wenyan is when you don't write the way you talk, you write in poetic Chinese. And there's different levels of that. So, but that's like, I think these things change depending on the structure of the language itself.
Yeah. Well, we have that too with like, Shakespeare and stuff. A very formal structure of things, in the syllabic meter and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah.
iambic pentameter stuff.
Right. Yeah. And not a lot of people know, but there's not just iambic pentameter. There's iambic trentameter, because pentameter is a measurement. It's a penta is it's 5 syllables at a time. So you could do any different syllables, and it would be different layout and structure. But what I think you should do, Jake, is next time, whatever we're talking about, you should film yourself talking about these things, and you'll have someone asking you questions, and then we'll be like, yeah, we'll cut to here's what we're going to talk about, and then it's just a video of you explaining something.
Okay.
Jake likes mess. It's funny. It's more work though, but
Wait, what did you say? You roboted.
You roboted a little.
Oh, oops. Am I back?
Yeah, you're
You're back.
now.
You're back.
I just said that's meta and Jake likes meta, but that's more work.
I could totally see that. I'd do it.
I was gonna say too, I'm writing something right now. I wrote a first draft of a short film about it's like a guy. So I have two versions of it. This is like, I think it kind of applies to the deep voice thing, because I sent it to get notes from my collaborator Jared, and he gave me some funny notes back that I'll tell you guys. But it's like how it goes is like this guy comes in and he's in a bad mood, and his wife asks him why, and he says because he's got to kill Julia in the morning. And she's like, oh, that's too bad. And they're talking about killing Julia, and you find out he's an author and he's going to kill Julia as a character in the book who's going to die. And then the wife is like, well, why, or how does she die? And he's like, a brick from a moving truck, and which is a Stephen King death from the book Cell. So it's sort of, my initial idea was like, I'm going to mock Stephen King and his doting wife because he uses it to get a foot massage from his wife, because he pretends that he feels bad that he has to kill a character. So she cheers him up. But so I kind of wrote that, and then I sent it to Jared, and the whole, I already, as soon as you hit send, you think, and I was like, there's a version of this where it's not a twist, where they're actually just talking about the philosophy of killing people in fiction, and they're kind of arguing, and she could be like, well, I like that character, why are you killing her? And he'd be like, well, because she has to. She's like, but you're killing her randomly, like you don't have to kill her and you're still doing it, why are you doing it? And I was thinking like, that's almost better than if you do this twist kind of thing that's like sort of cheesy, and the twist is like, are they in a cult or something? Oh no, they're just talking about their book. And I'm like, actually just them just sitting down and talking about killing in fiction, and then the story that they're talking about is like more interesting potentially. And I sent it to Jared, and he sent it back, he's like, yeah, it feels a little bit like you doing a writing exercise. And I was like, oh, that stings. I'm definitely going to redraft it and try the other way and see how it goes. But that's where I'm at right now. I haven't even redrafted it yet, but it's like a little bit of that deep voice thing maybe.
Well, yeah, that was dialogue that probably ended up sound like it was supposed to be deep voice stuff from the characters, but because they were like exploring something in a more composed way, it probably felt more like straight talky, chit chatty stuff, right? Like you didn't, and what I wanted to ask you guys is, when you're writing your characters, how do you find their deep voice? Like if it's not any of those tones, if they're not chit-chatting, if they're not like maybe they can be like a religious figure that, or like an old-timey figure that speaks a bit more poetically, and it could make them sound a bit posh. But like when it comes to just how your characters talk, how do you figure that out, and how do you make it different for the different characters you have? And like, do you maybe weave in some of the other voices that aren't just the deep talking voice?
Yeah, if you have a character who all of a sudden they are free to be one of those kind of weirder ones, they might end up becoming your favorite character or audience's favorite character just because of the freedom that comes from how you conceive of them in the first place. If they can be the fuck it character, or like people, maybe they're meant to be the bad guy even, but the bad guy gets to say what everyone's thinking, then everyone ends up liking them, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
So for me, what stands out for a character of mine is the Masquerade, who's this pulp character who is a master of disguise. It's all about deception. He could be anyone at any time. And when he's in his, hero form, he speaks in iambic pentameter. So it's very over the top, theatric, and ornate. And he has, when he goes and takes his mask off, he takes the form of this theater actor. This also is built-in deception because that's his profession. And the first time you see him, he gets interrupted by his girlfriend, who's a lounge singer. And even when he's with her, he's trying to deceive her. She's like, "Where have you been?" And then he just interrupts her with a kiss. So it takes her mind off of the issue. And she's like, "Well, you're due on stage in 2 minutes." And then she leaves the room. And then when he's alone, he has this like short soliloquy of, "Oh, I'm gonna get those bad guys." Like he doesn't care about the play. She's like, "Oh, break a leg," and then he goes into his, someone's gonna get their legs broken tonight, stuff like that. So it's finally when he's alone by himself, you could have that. I guess what this guy would call the deep voice or whatever the hell he said, where that's the true him. But even like outside of that, you don't know the true him. You don't know if him as the hero is him mocking these enemies, him with his girlfriend, or potentially even that, But I guess that would be the only thing I could relate to that.
So it's like you almost have a character who's been able to mask who they really are by using all of the other voices that aren't like the deep voice.
Sure.
As this guy says.
Yeah.
Like you can almost use if you ever have a character that's kind of like doesn't want to reveal much about themselves, like they would probably always be talking about the weather and being chit-chatty and not saying anything that felt legit, right? Like they would be using the straight talking kind of voice.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you see that in a bunch of movies too, where like, have you guys ever seen the film Blue Streak? It's Martin Lawrence is this thief, and he drops a diamond in a air vent, and then they're doing construction on this building, and it turns into a police station. So now he has to go break into the police station to get this diamond that he went to jail for years ago, and he ends up disguising himself as a cop. But the first thing is he dresses up as a pizza delivery guy and is like, "Oh, I'm delivering pizza to the police station so I can get a good look at it." And when he's interacting with them as this pizza guy, it's just all chit chat, making a buffoon of himself, trying to be slick, talking really fast and stuff like that. So that would be his the way that you would do that chit chat talk.
Yeah, and like you're supposed. So the idea is you get drama from when you change those tones. Like if he was speaking in that chit-chatty voice and then he turned to someone else and like whispered something in his authentic voice, like a warning or something, like there's supposed to be drama that comes from that.
I like that concept that characters can have more than one voice, because we all do, kind of like in high school on the soccer team. The high school coach, he's still kind of a buddy of mine. He's like one of my best friend's dads, and he was always so nice and jokey all the time, and we all loved him. he got mad once, and I'll never forget it. But he got really mad, and he's like, "Practice is over. Get out!" He like kicks everyone out early because we were joking around too much. Nobody saw it coming. We're all like haunted by it. Like I get goosebumps thinking about this guy who's so nice. Seeing him get actually mad, it was like mind blowing.
Like he would have been like almost performing as like an older like authority figure, almost being straight talky like a teacher. And then when he does that with like that, when he finally says something like in his real voice, when he's finally fed up, like there's drama created by that transition into a different voice.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from this conversation so far that I like is it's kind of about changing it and switching it up. I got one random anecdote to relate back to you guys too. But this is only still only tangent sort of relates, but it's in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that is directed by George Roy Hill, and it's written by this other guy who's super famous, really good writer, William Goldman, one of the best writers of all time. But William Goldman said that Butch Cassidy came out, and it's like a classic, everyone loves it, But George Roy Hill was pissed because after the first screening, and he's like, "Why are you so mad?" And George Roy is like, "Everyone laughed." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "They laugh too much. It's not a comedy. Why is everyone laughing?" And he was really bummed. The director of the movie was bummed that he had inadvertently made a comedy. And I don't know, like that's just funny to me. But because if you go back and you watch it, you're like, yeah, it's like freaking clever. So it's operating on this meta level that it's like very clever. And I think he didn't like that. He wanted to get more to the deep voice. But at this, like, that's kind of stupid in that case. Almost like you're like, let it be clever, let it be fun, because people love it. So
I don't think I think that much about voice and stuff. I mean, I do, but when I'm constructing dialogue, like I prefer
how do you construct dialogue then? Like that you feel you do it differently?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I do it differently. I just don't like I've read some script writing books, and I've taken a couple of writing classes, but I think at the end of the day, with dialogue, I just try to be more. I don't like to overthink it too much. Like I don't like to constrain myself to structure. And for example, when I'm writing a story, I noticed like for Fiendish, I didn't set out to design it like, okay, this is act 1, this is act 2. It kind of turned out that way. It's got the structure of, it's technically 4 acts, but you can also make it 3 acts where the last, like act 3 and 4 are 1. But some stories are like that. Some stories have like this short 3rd act, and then the 4th act is the final one. And it just turned out that way because I think people instinctively tell stories or understand stories that way. But for dialogue, this is why I like tabletop games and role-playing games so much, because I think I struggled with characterization the most. I've always been a world building and plot person, and just using my experience in tabletop games helped me get into the character. So that's what I try to do. I try to, like, I know who my characters are. And for example, my main character, Casimir, he's very standoffish, and he doesn't, it's not even that he's particularly quiet, but when he says things, he doesn't use flowery language. He's very practical, very to the point, and he also tries to keep people at arm's length. He doesn't like to show his emotions, and it's a defense mechanism because he has he's been through a great loss in his past, and he's really afraid. He's really just afraid of being emotionally hurt again. And he also he also knows how cruel the world can be, and that's contrasted by his little cousin Iskil that he's taken care of, who's really innocent and trusting of everybody. So they're kind of foils for each other. But so because I know who these characters are, I kind of just try to get in their headspace and almost role play them. And after doing that for a while, it kind of just like, oh, this feels right. So but like it's really interesting what you guys have been saying, because with the talk of these voices, I'm starting to think about, oh yeah, like the way Ragna talks is one, like almost those voices kind of apply to the characters, because I have 4 protagonists. I have one main character but 4 protagonists, and it's Ragna, Yomi, Casimir, Iskil, and Casimir is like the very more, I guess they're different. Like it almost applies a little bit, but not completely. Casimir is like really practical and like just cold to the point. Iskall is the emotional one, who he would be your normal voice. He just is trying to get at the emotion. He doesn't care how he presents to people. Ragna is the most intelligent one. She's the most well educated, and so she'll use big words, and like I make a point for her to speak in a more sophisticated way. And Yomi's the complete opposite. She's the least educated. She used to be a slave, so she has like an accent. She truncates her words, and she has like a different kind of voice as well. So it's funny how like not completely, but some of what we've been talking about applies to characters.
Well, you know, the thing is, like, I think even though you haven't thought about these things fully, you're totally already doing them. Like, yeah, Casimir, he's not revealing how he feels all the time. He's pretty much just straight talking about everything. He's going to be relaying information. He's going to be telling people how it is, right? Ragnar is going to be, she's not going to be showing how she feels. She's probably hiding behind the ornate voice all the time, trying to sound refined or like smart or even pompous in a way. Yeah, and then you totally have Iskall, who probably almost can't hide behind any of those voices, and he's just being honest all the time to his like detriment almost. Like,
well, I think that like the list of stuff that this guy's talking about, probably no one consciously thinks about those things.
Yeah.
And it's an analysis of writing on his part that you could, you know, hold up to pieces of writing and be like, oh, this is this and this is this is this.
Well, it's just like how, Phil, you recognize the repeating thing. Like, it's something people just naturally do. Like when Ethan does it on the stream, I don't think he thinks about it. It's just naturally in his way of performing, and he's felt that out. But you can kind of you can learn those categories, and then say you're writing something like trying to convey something through dialogue, like you want a dramatic moment to happen, and you kind of don't know what you want to do. You can kind of just run through those 5 voices and think, well, which one am I currently in, and what could I switch it to create a little bit of drama in this moment that I'm currently like stuck on.
You know what? We're in an era right now where everyone's sick of the Josh Whedonese, and I don't know if that is like too much chit chat or whatever. The one that I've been thinking about it in my head of, it is like a separate scale of cleverness, because it can be good on any level or it can be bad. Cleverness can definitely be like annoying if you read like everyone's clever, everyone's playing off each other like in an unrealistic way or whatever. That's like can get real old. That's a little more the Whedonese. And then you can go more earnest where nothing is clever potentially, except maybe if you have like a clever character or whatever, and that maybe is a little more realistic. And everyone, you kind of oscillate on that field too. I got a note back working with your boy Zach. I sent him a draft recently of a script, and he's like, "What is this Whedonese? This is not going to work." I'm like, "Okay."
Well, I think Whedonese is almost a modern version of the ornate voice. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's trying to be linguistically clever in its own way.
I think it's like probably a combination. I'm sure there are combinations of these voices as well. But, you know, like when I thinking about it, I guess those 4 or /5 categories are a pretty good breakdown of voices, but you can combine them, and Whedonese is almost chit chat merged with a little bit of ornateness. But I think people are annoyed by it. At least like it annoys me, because it's like everybody speaks in that way, and the people who like he doesn't. With him, it's like all his characters kind of talk like that. I mean, he can kind of make it work sometimes, but what's annoying about a lot of the current Marvel movies are they'll break the tone of a moment to crack a joke in Whedonese, and that because they think it's the jokiness and the chit-chattiness that people like but it takes you out of the story, so it just ruins it. It doesn't work.
Well, like the Mozart piece of music, the Whedonese is the dun 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 dun. And if you're expecting a change in the music when something meaningful happens, and you're going to expect someone to react in like the deep voice, and then they continue the dun 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 of the Whedonese, I think that's when you're like, well, fuck this, I don't care, these people aren't real.
Right.
It would be like some grand, I don't know, classical music, but something. Imagine something really emotive and grand, and like just, and then all of a sudden, like it stops,
Yeah.
and you start playing like the Nokia cell phone tune, like
Yeah.
that's what it's like in these movies.
But yeah, so like, go on, Phil.
I was gonna, well, when you brought up the Beethoven thing, I thought that this was gonna be about how do you have different characters that sound different, and not falling into having all your characters sound the same, like have the same voice when they're speaking.
Well, that's what I mean about how, like, that's the question that comes at the end when you explore deep voice. Okay, like, how do you give your characters different deep voices so they don't always just sound like the same person confessing something or revealing something or speaking from the, like, how do you do that to differentiate your characters?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting discussion. I think like character writing is something I've had to learn. I don't think I'm really natural at it, but just knowing your characters well is what I've been taught and what I find works well, because it's sort of like getting into the heads. I remember George R. R. Martin talking about like the characters that were hardest for him to write, and he was like, it's Bran, because Bran is like 6 in the books, and you have to put yourself in the shoes of a 6-year-old, and to write at that level and think about, well, what would a 6-year-old who's living in this medieval society, what terms would they know, and how is it different than modern 6-year-olds, and the words he would know are totally different. And so it's again, it goes back to getting in your characters' heads, but sort of like taking the time to build a character and differentiate who they are in that way. For example, if I'm writing, like, Ragna's like a 22-year-old shaman who's really intelligent, well educated, but I can differentiate that her voice from someone else who also has that same background by like the nuances of each person's family. Like, I know Ragna was raised by a strict grandmother, and so she would have more tendencies, this or that. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah.
it does. It does.
Well, I think that's when you boil it down to it, is creating different characters and understanding them. And I think a kind of fast track way to do that is latching onto an archetype of character, right? And you have different character archetypes, which could be a stream within itself, but it would be, like you take the Ninja Turtles, they're very distinct characters, and I've heard them equated to, even though this isn't an archetype, of the 4 elements, like fire, water, wind, and earth. Raph is fire, he's the hot-headed guy. Wind would be Mikey because he's all over the place. Earth would be Leo because he's the leader, is very grounded headspace. And then water cools down the situation, Donatello. He's very clear-headed as well. So if you kind of, whether it be that situation, and that you see that in a lot of storytelling, especially the comic books with teams of 4 people, usually differentiate the characters like that, or classic archetypes, whether it be like, what is it, the jester type character, or the mischievous character like Loki or whatever, and all those. That is a good foundation for building a character and kind of finding their voice. And a lot of it also is attitude, I think.
But how do you think that is expressed through the dialogue differences? Like, how do you go about when you're making characters that different? How do you actually express that? Is it through dialogue? Is it through their expressions? Like, is it through the things they care about, the actions that take place that they get concerned about? Like, do you even really convey it that much through dialogue, other than like, this person speaks with this accent, this person uses this particular like palette of words, like Ragnar being more fancy, maybe someone who's like more of a technical person could use technological terms, or
I think that just comes from what Irene says, is just knowing your character, because you're creating the character, and the more serious you are about your characters in detail and knowing how they would react in different situations and where their background comes from will give you insight to the language they use. I was writing today something for my character Jasmine, and she was outraged about something, and she spoke differently than someone else in the scene, would have. So it's just taking the time to spend with your characters to get to know them.
So a shortcut that I remember, I can't remember where I saw it, but I just thought of it, and it was in regards to making characters. It was like a GM's guide, a game master's guide to making interesting secondary characters and background characters for role-playing games, and it applied really well to writing. And what that GM was saying was you can start with an archetype, but so like the archetypes of hero, jester, everyman, all those kinds of archetypes, and we should definitely do a video on that as well. I think that would be a good subject. But you can start with that, but to make it not stereotypical is create either like a fear or a secret for each character. And that's a really good thing to act off of, because every person has sort of like their greatest fear. So it's like, this is a jester, but why is he always funny? Oh, it's masking trauma. But another jester could be funny for different reasons. It could be because that's just how he derives value, and the only way people pay attention to him is when he's funny. And so his fear is not being paid attention to. And those are like good baselines for creating nuance when you write how they talk.
Yeah, no, I never thought of it like that. Like the fear thing, that's really good, because then you know your character even at a deeper level. Like that would be something I'm like, oh, like probably explore in a story, but knowing that even if it's not going to come up, really could influence the decisions that character makes.
Right. Yeah.
Things they say.
I can't. I wish I remember the. It's somewhere on YouTube, but I'm sure it's not just like one guy who's mentioned it. I'm remembering now. It's not just a fear and a secret, but also what they want and what they need. So fear, secret, what they want, what they need, and what they want and what they need should not be the same. So that's a really good shortcut to building like a unique character.
Yeah, a random one that, and this is only like one off, it only works once in a while, but it's one Tarantino used as a character can have a cherished object that will often like very much dictate what they say. It comes up, and in Pulp Fiction, it's Butch. It's what's his face? Who's that guy? You guys know what I'm talking about? The guy from Die Hard. But
yeah, Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis, yeah. He lost his grandfather's watch, and his girlfriend doesn't bring it when she leaves the house, so he has to go back to get it. And I don't know, there's a lot of good dialogue. But you see the whole flashback, so you see obviously the monologue about Christopher Walken. He's like, for 6 years, your grandfather hid this watch up his ass, blah, blah, blah. And then Butch is like, you didn't get my grandfather's watch? You have no idea what he went through to get that watch to me. I don't have time to go into it right now, but it was a lot.
You gotta say like, for 6 years,
Yeah.
grandfather put this watch up his ass.
So it's more about the things they talk about and how they talk about them, right? Like the decisions they make. You like express the character a lot more through all those things rather than.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that also is more important the more your characters you're dealing with as well, right? Because you want to differentiate this stuff, and how much time do you give these characters and on a page to speak, and how important they are to the story. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is, I guess, the actions, and that would be more of a plot thing,
Yeah. Well, so like the premise of the thing, I suppose you guys thinking it was more about dialogue, I kind of like threw us off a bit, but I totally was building to something with those different voices. Because I was like, okay, maybe you can feed it a little bit into characterization, but when it comes to your characters and dialogue, like you're usually trying to differentiate like what their actual voice is, and then like we've kind of talked about, that characterization usually comes across more about the things they talk about and like the decisions they make. But if those principles of different writing was like styles of writing in like prose or something, and if I bring this up, so I've thought about how to convert them to visuals when it comes to comics, and I kind of think you can convert it to like different paneling and different like layouts and the way that you convey information on a page. Like
Right.
I wrote these down here, and I've got like different things you can do in a story in the abstract, but we can kind of come to this. Like I don't mean to like text wall you, but like these are ways of converting those principles to like story elements. So like say the ornate abstract, sorry, like let's start from the beginning. Hold on. Yeah. I don't have the straight talk one. The straight talk one would be pretty much just conveying a sequence of events like very plainly. Like it's establishing shot, it's person walking along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I couldn't think of many for that. But say when it comes to expressing like the ornate in an abstract, you can get things like really intricate fighting scenes. Like I've got like a gun being assembled, a magical girl activation sequence, intricate sword play, and like a complex button press sequence to start up a machine or something. Like I tried thinking of these in the abstracts, and I wondered if you guys would start getting ideas of like how you would express those different voices through actual storytelling. Like, is this communicating? Is this matching up, or does it still seem like a bit obscure, like a bit oblique?
I mean, it's abstract, which is what you're going for. But yeah, I mean, I guess like what we were doing last week, just equating different things to, you know, other avenues of storytelling. Yeah, I don't know. Would you say like the chit chat sequences would just be like 9-panel grid stuff?
Well, okay, perfect, Phil. So, so the whole thing of like the tones changing, like if you go through, so the idea is you wouldn't just do the same thing over and over again. You would kind of like mix a bunch of these as you go through, and like doing the same thing over and over again is kind of like the 9-panel grids that you would have in like Watchmen, right? Like
Right.
this is almost the dun 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 of comics, even though they are showing different things in the actual panels.
God, that Rorschach yelling panel is just so good.
Yep.
So damn good.
But like on the next slide, it's like if you kind of start changing things up a bit, it like becomes almost just like instantly more engaging because the kind of like rhythm changes.
Right. Yeah. It's conditioning your audience and then changing it on them to evoke some sort of change in the audience.
Yeah. But I wanted to see what you guys think of of these ways of communicating the same ideas but through paneling. But yeah, so like you have the chit chatty stuff, which is like you've got a sequence of just plain events going on, kind of like Watchmen does. Like
Jake, you always save the show with these PowerPoint presentations.
I was thinking of getting to this quicker, but then I was like, shit, people wanted to talk about dialogue and I fucked up. But yeah, like this is kind of what I wanted to get at, is like converting those ideas and doing it to storytelling. So like chit chat, relaying information, you're just showing very, very standard series of events. If you want to take the ornateness, you can get really fancy with your paneling structure. You can frame things like central elements with your panels. Like You've even got like certain patternings going on in the backgrounds of these things that could like evoke different emotions or whatever. The repetition, you've got like these characters' 3 heads, and it's like just how you're doing by the people, for the people, of the people, which is supposed to punctuate you being like hammer an idea into your head. Like if you can almost relay information in a similar way visually. And there is one page from Watchmen. It's like the one on the left, there's some like white over the top of it, but like you have this very same, like you have the woman on the panels on the left, and then each time it goes over to a double, forget the white line on the right, that's like an overlay. Like you have those double wide panels like stacked in 3s, and like that page is almost like the same repetition.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think with the paneling example, can you go back to the other example? Yeah, this could apply, I think, more to composition techniques. Like I think this could apply to like cover design.
Yeah.
And somewhat more so than to paneling, because ornate is like stupid to do in comics, because that's not the point of comics. Like you're not conveying any information. You're not like, your comics should be conveying something. That's ridiculous. And gibberish, I can see a use for that if you're conveying a chaotic scene. But for example, I'm thinking of what if, like most of these apply, but not completely, because if you're, for example, you're doing an establishing shot and multi-panel panning into a city or something, and like manga does that a lot, but it's not chit chat and it's not quite deep voice. Oh, normal dropped. It's just conveying mood, is letting you sink into the scene. Like when we were talking about in the manga episode a couple weeks ago, what would that really be? Like that's mood. So I think this applies closely, but it's not completely sort of. I think it can't be boiled down to like just these 5.
No, obviously not. I was trying to say that like this isn't the way of thinking it. It's like a way of thinking about it that you could probably use if as like material if you wanted to like have some fun, or if you were stuck. And like say the ornate thing, okay, there are plenty of people who basically see the page itself as a piece of art, and they'll try and compose the page itself kind of ornately as if it was a singular art piece. Welcome back, Noel. Like one of the people I'm thinking of is like Shanth's pages, and the way he's construct, like people do ornate frames sometimes to their panels, and they do try and get a feeling across through having that ornateness in the same way that like fancy ornate prose might do in a piece of writing. Like there are artists that try and convey that same thing through their pen.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's almost just art style, though. That's just stylistic. I think Shanth's pages, they're beautiful and they are ornate, but at the end of the day, it's just his style is ornate and intricate. Most of it would be deep voice. I see. I would say.
Yeah. Of these, I really like the repetition one. Looks really nice to me. And I don't know. By the way, I got 5 deerts right outside my giant window.
Is that what you were trying to show us?
Yeah, but it just shows the reflection if I show it, so you guys might not see it. It's too dark outside. Oh, there's 6 deerts now.
What?
And one of them's a little doe.
Show us.
They're right outside. Well, they were so close, but now they're across the street. They're still close though. I want to feed them and make them my friends.
They're almost like a Disney princess.
He's gonna go sing to the deers.
Frolicking with the animals.
Someone says shoot the deer.
No, don't.
No, I protect.
You should attack.
I take a bullet for a deer.
Wait, I hate when the chat moves and you click on the wrong thing. Yeah, man, just like get them to have babies and then keep some venison locked up in the crawl space. Dear,
I'm waiting
pretty
for the
taste.
coon to come by. I've seen a cat, a dog, 6 deers. Where's my little buddy, the coon?
You should get some rabies while you can.
They are cute, those raccoons. I like their
The
little
cat-
horns.
The cat is hanging out with the deers, like just 3 feet from him, just hanging. It's pretty
Cool.
sweet.
But yeah, so the idea of these panels wasn't that like you would just do one of these. It's more like you would kind of mix them together and they would flow in and out of each other. And like an interest of a comic would be how you kind of like mix these up. And if you wanted like a go-to to create some like tonal change interest as you're making a book, you could, if you wanted to, think about it in this way. Like the gibberish thing, like someone could be drunk and they could be having an experience. Like they could be having a bunch of flashbacks of like PTSD moments. Or yeah, like I'm not sure how often you use gibberish. It's like how often would you even use that tone? Like what, when someone's getting drunk or being demented or something?
Right. I don't know how that would work. I mean, visually, I mean, just like acid trippy stuff, like Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange stuff. It's very otherworldly, cosmic things. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird frame and box.
In that video, when the guy was talking about them and he mentioned repetition being one, at first I kind of balked at that because a little bit, my first thought, what Phil pointed out, I was like, that's just redundant. Like, why would anyone do that? And then you hear examples, you're like, oh, I love it when they do that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking there's like a lot of examples, but one of them that made me laugh is from Hot Fuzz when they're like, for the greater good, the greater good.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like so funny. And
Should I go to the repetition page? Go on, carry on.
Yeah, so that's just, I guess, one of my takeaways from this meeting, because this is one I definitely am not, I don't know that much about it, so I'm really trying to be like a sponge. I've got a few takeaways, and one of them is that repetition is definitely good.
So
and
good.
Changing things up, characters having like multiple voices. You know, with that sometimes they call it a mask. Like we all wear, speaking of the masquerade, but we all wear a mask. Like if you go out with your friends, you're wearing your friend mask. You go home to your apartment, you're wearing maybe the real you. And like movies, comics can do this too, but they can give you a glimpse at that secret version of you that no one else sees. People like kind of love that. But the idea that even that it's everyone has multiples and you can switch between them, that will probably give you good dialogue, I bet, just thinking about that. But I don't know.
Just to go back to the ornate thing, just so I can like try and convince Rini that it is a useful thing. Like I really want to see if I can get through a tiny bit. So like in the kind of like ornateness, it's not just like a fancy panel border and stuff. Like if you're having a choreographed sequence that can flow through an interesting panel layout, that would like be a different level of ornate. Like ornate isn't just everything's in a pretty picture frame.
Right. It's just
like,
more complex.
It's like this, like the chit chatty is more like conveying information very plainly, and then ornate is like, you know, the sequence of someone assembling their gun, but you like would compose the panels to match the flow of the action. I can never win her over. Look at her face.
That just seems like being a good artist to me. I don't think this applies to panel.
No, but a good artist would just do these, is what I'm saying. Like you would be playing with all of these different like ways of expressing a story. Like these are just like little, they're like categories of storytelling.
Here's an example. I'm trying to have your back here, Jake.
Thanks,
See,
Phil.
This is Gunslinger Spawn. You got Brett Booth. You want to blow my page up here?
Oh yeah, sorry, Phil.
Doing this, and this would be Jake's. There you go. This would be Jake's, chit chatty panel. So you got the straightforward, especially here and then you get a page turn, right? You got straightforward, cinematic, widespread panels, and then you turn the page, and now the paneling is
definitely, 100%,
flowery and extreme, and it breaks up that comfort that your reader has had because you condition them to look at panels that are more like this.
Yeah, like
That
that's
comes-
a tonal change to the visuals.
Yeah.
That comes across to me as deep voice, or like the other one I was mentioning, which is mood. Like I think there's one that doesn't exist in these 5. That's, you know, like the one I was mentioning of the environments panning in. That's mood. I just think it's like I don't disagree that comics can be ornate or paneling can be ornate. What I'm disagreeing on is that it shouldn't be the purpose of the way you panel a page, because you should never construct your paneling specifically in regards to sequential pages just to make it pretty. It should be conveying a mood or clarity of action or plot. And
Right.
those apply to other things. It's like the purpose should never to just be ornate, because that isn't putting the storytelling first.
Right. I think Irene's getting hung up on the word ornate.
Yeah.
It's just like, forget about the word. It's just like a more complex way of writing or paneling in this case. It's just
I'm
a
here
word.
to be the contrarian. Yeah, but
It's
it's fine. You can move on.
That's okay. Like trying to see if like and I had like ornate lettering for like different voices. You could have like different lettering styles, like pattern background symbology. Doesn't matter. Let's go to the repetition one, because that was it definitely has an impact on dialogue. You know the funny thing about repetition, do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
No. Do you remember these panels? Like this is totally the repetition thing again as well.
Mm-hmm. That was my favorite comic.
Yeah, see, like, okay, Jordan he's saying, I thought the deep voice referred to the inner thoughts or emotional conveyance. So, like, yeah, you totally have it. That's why, so, like, number 5, deep voice, like, these are characters realizing something and expressing, like, realizations. Like, it's kind of like the you can see what they're expressing, you know what I mean?
But can't those realizations, I think even in gibberish or chit chat, you can be deeply emotional.
Well, yeah, you're always trying to mix them together. You're never just doing one on its own. These are just like, I've just created examples to try and get the idea across in isolation. And then when you're actually making a comic, you would mix them all together.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be an ass. I'm like, okay, if I was going to do a guide of these are the types of panels that you could look to by default if you're stuck, I would. I think most of these apply, but there were a couple more I think don't quite match.
Oh no, if you're stuck, you just go to this.
That too. Look at that.
If you just want to roll like I got a 20-sided dice for this.
Jake was just trying to equate that dumb fat guy's words.
I liked his interview. I thought it was cool, and I was like, this can track. But yeah, it's like it's basically just taking the 5 different categories of how you would express storytelling in like writing like a book, and then thinking of ways to abstract that to like visual storytelling like this as defined examples. And like if you could find any other ways of expressing through a comic panel, can you think of a way of expressing a story through a comic that wouldn't fit any of these styles?
Yeah,
Say again.
No, I said Irene could.
Okay, go on.
No, like the one I was mentioning where it's in the establishing shots and the paneling is for conveying mood. I think that's one of them.
Would that not be the first one here?
No, I don't think so, because chit chat is relaying info, but it's what I'm thinking of is like, and you see this in manga a lot. If you're like panning into a scene and it's not just one establishing shot, it's like it's multiple establishing shots. Like you're zooming into the mountain and zooming into the town, and then it's like 3 pages of just shots of the street, and it's just letting the mood and the world sink in. That's not chit chat. It's not even really relaying info. It's mood. So that's another type of visual storytelling that's not on here.
I've put chit chat. The word he mainly use is straight talk, which is like showing things how it is. If you're trying to establish a mood, it is kind of like, this is what the mood is. Like, this is the place. Like, you don't just show a physical place, you want to show the feeling of the place, right?
Right.
Like,
Now, Mignola does that a lot. Like in Hellboy, he'll just have random panels of ominous statues that are around. And those are
Yeah.
really-
Oh
Like we
yeah,
got-
yeah.
like we got rain and like a silhouetted guy. Like, I thought that kind of would convey a mood, like establishing a mood of the piece.
Rain.
Yeah, that's like all his lines is like rain. He's got some
Wait,
pinging
you
off his head.
drew the first page of Watchmen.
No, I didn't. It's an
What?
angry face, not a happy face.
What would like a action scene? This just seems really limiting.
No,
Like-
an
It
action
is.
an action scene is the ornate one. It's the complex and flowing one.
But it's also conveying info, and it's
Yeah, it's never
so
just
limiting.
one-
I don't. Okay.
Okay. I
But
feel
it's
like
not.
I'm
The purpose isn't just to be ornate. It's to
I love
convey
this topic
action
right
and
now.
clarity and.
Let's go to the repetition.
Let's move
This
on.
this
Let's
is
move
absolute,
on.
This is an absolute train wreck. I'm like, I'm trying my best to convey this, and Rini's like, no, it doesn't work. It's
It's
just
so
not
hard.
happening.
It's those horns on her head. She's wearing the cowboy hat.
She's gone into demon mode. She's gone into like, no, Jake, none of this works, and I'm not
I'm
building
not.
any
I'm not
bridges right
trying
now.
to. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm giving
No,
you a
it's okay.
challenge. Let's move on.
I definitely feel challenged.
Repetition.
Yeah, so like things that I, instead of just like repetition through speech like a religious person or a politician, I totally think you could have the whole idea of repeating things like a character keeps checking their watch and giving the same expression at the end of every conversation. Like there's a scene with this character, and every time they exit by doing a similar action. Like having a character whose name always gets mistaken by everyone, or yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, repetition is everywhere. Well, it could be everywhere in storytelling. Like you could use it readily, and I think it's a very powerful technique. You know,
Yeah,
even
like-
visually.
I think with Earthbound, I did that in the beginning. A lot of people end up saying it's like a phrase that the 13th sponsor has, where they say, "For greater glory to the 13th sponsor," and that's like their outro or whatever when they finish speaking for certain like exchanges. And I think I kind of did that accidentally, but it did seem like people responded to that a lot, and people were quoting it at me, and people were
Yeah.
remembering it,
Well,
and it made me
that
like it.
that right there is like using repetition to world build, because you're putting a phrase
Yeah.
in the world that is commonly used and known, but it's not known to the reader. So if you repeat it throughout the story, that adds a layer to your world. Like they have a bunch of stuff like that in the Dark Tower series, because it's this otherworldly place. You just the way they talk, instead of saying goodbye, they say like I don't know, long days and pleasant nights or something like that. And they say that constantly throughout the whole series, and it just adds to the culture of the world.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So repetition's the GOAT.
I'm a big fan of repetition. I didn't know. I thought I hated it, but I like it.
Well, how did you feel the first time we were talking about repetition? Like, what was the negative connotation you had with it?
I was like, please, in my
Like
head.
it was so baby
Redundant.
simple stuff.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's actually good stuff. I didn't know.
Yeah, like I think I know you like Tarantino, and he uses so much repetition in his dialogue, but it's in like an intricate way, right? Like, it always
Yeah, he
seems
does
kind of
call and
rhythmic.
response. That's another thing that has gotten a little bit played out. It's Whedon might do it too. And like Tarantino has a voice. This is one thing I was thinking is he has a voice, and you can almost argue that he doesn't distinguish voices for his characters. They all speak like Tarantino, and like maybe Shakespeare's even maybe like that. But because they're still like really good characters, they still say good stuff. And maybe that's not true. I'm trying to think of again like Pulp Fiction, like Ving Rhames definitely talks like different than Butch. So maybe it's not true. I don't know.
Well, my presentation was a complete failure, and that's totally fine. I've now
not a failure.
I've now
Very
ran out.
interesting. Good job.
Jake,
All
There's
the
no such thing as a failed experiment. That's what they say.
yeah, no.
Unlike Rini, I liked it, Jake.
Oh my god.
Wait, is that why Phil's probably still winning the vote? Oh my god! In the popularity contest, Phil and Rini are still neck and neck, and I'm surprised I'm not lower after my performance today.
Wow.
Your performance was fine. I'm just here to give you a challenge. What's the point of this discussion if we all agree?
Oh no, it's okay.
134 votes, people. That's the unique viewers that have been in here. And
Hell
maybe
yeah.
some of my alt accounts that signed in and voted twice for.
Everybody
You've been
sign
voting
into
for
your
yourself,
alt
Phil.
account and vote for me.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
no.
I wore
Oh,
my
I love that.
special ornate dress
Oh my
today for you guys.
Ornate. Rini's ornate.
Yeah, she's going ornate.
I am, but I am not a comic panel. Even though
Yeah,
we
like-
kind of could be. Look, we're like a comic.
I'm chit
Well,
chatty.
comment.
Noel is straight talk, and Phil is what were they again? I forgot my
What
own
are
bullshit.
we? Yeah.
I'm repetitive because I've worn the hat every show. Yeah.
There you go. Phil's the repetition. No,
That-
yeah, I feel like fucking gibberish.
You're the giver.
Hold on. Go back to chit chat.
Yeah.
Ornate, Roman, deep voice. Some performing it. Repetition, gibberish, deep voice. Deep voice is what would deep voice that would be like your like from the heart, right? What would like speaking academically be? Does that apply to any of these?
I kind of feel like it's ornate. That's someone using like, even though I put flowery because I can't write all of the descriptions for it, but like yeah, using words you wouldn't usually use in your speech that usually sounds like a constructed piece of writing, like how you would imagine an old-timey person would think, but like, oh, how on the morrow, my fellow, I doth see you there in the cherry bush, that kind of thing. And then
oh, sorry.
no,
Okay,
I had
fine.
I had one moment. I had one moment from Fiendish that I thought might communicate what the whole deep voice thing is, even when like a character like Casimir is being really direct. So you know the scene where you have like the Scottish guy twittering on, and
Yeah.
he's kind of the moment he realizes it's quiet, and when he says it's too quiet, that's when he goes into his deep voice. Like he's revealing how he's instantly feeling. Yeah, like he's not performing for anyone. He's not speaking ornately. He's like suddenly realizing something.
I do think there should be. I understand what you mean with the ornate, but what I'm talking about with like academic talk, or kind of like how I was mentioning, I try to write Casimir just really straightforward, like purely perfunctory information. I would personally categorize that as a different kind of talk, but
Yeah.
Well, how do you mean?
I
Like-
would say there's more than 5 voices, and I hate that guy with the playwright hat.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
that's
you,
fair.
Lisa. Now we're on the same page. No, it was this is like
sorry,
a good
Jack.
basis. I would probably add like another one, but this is an interesting baseline to start with and think about. Like I think what this could be used for, like I think it's best to not overthink like, well, exactly what kind of speech am I using now? And like, does it fit this scene?
Yeah.
Because if you're too if you're too obsessed with like, am I doing it by the textbook?
Yeah.
Writing it, you constrain yourself. But what this is useful for is, for example, if you have a cast and for example, how this got me thinking about, I have 4 lead characters and a bunch of deuteragonists, and like, do I have a variation of these voices within that cast? Because that makes sure that ensures that your story presentation has variation and isn't boring. Everybody doesn't have the same voice, because that's the one thing that you should be avoiding at all costs.
Right. Yeah. This is, to me, is just an analysis exercise to be like, oh, do you have this? And this is this. And it's I don't think anyone's conscious, or probably should be, because you could become too anal and it will make for a cold story. I don't know. That's just
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that I've seen that happen before, and you don't want to be too constrained.
Mhm. Yeah,
But if you have written something and you feel like this doesn't feel as dramatic as it usually does, you could look at it and think like, I haven't really changed the tone that often. Like I haven't juxtaposed enough of these, and then you don't obviously then have to go like surgically. Well, which one will I use? It's just kind of a sign of like switching it up a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything. I had one more, because we started with the Mozart. I was like, okay, that's the audio version, and I wanted to make an example that's the visual version. And so like, is everyone ready? Tell me when you get fed up with this one. Okay, so
We've tried, just doesn't. Oh crap.
Not annoyed yet. Let's keep going. This is great. I hate Peter too. Now let's keep going. Let's see how many new ones we
the
do.
tone isn't really changing. There's not much tonal dynamics going on apart from the music.
Very early. I like that
There we go. That's the...
You gave up.
You win.
That was good.
Totally a stare down contest of who would chicken out.
No, it ended. That was the end of the video. That was literally the end of the video. I didn't take it off.
That
That
was
was the end
great.
of the video.
Half our viewers are gone.
The best part of the stream was that, and the Watchmen pages makes me want to read Watchmen again.
Yeah.
Yeah, how great they are.
They looked a lot more visually striking than I remember them.
Yeah,
I love this sequence here as well.
The double page spread, like I don't even remember that in the book. Like I remember the scene, but I don't remember being laid out like that. It was freaking awesome.
Tanky Frankie says there was no less than that. It's like, yes, there was. There was no phase change in the tone of what was happening. It was the same thing, but the real truth is the music changed a lot. So like the phase change was always happening in the music. So like you could just have him punching over and over again, and it would be kind of funny. But if the music had been like boring or not there, then you would have got fed up. But because there was still a phase change in the music, like people were kind of like laughing. And we didn't lose half the people. They left long ago.
That's true.
Oh, okay. It's much better.
Hope you guys subbed and liked the channel.
Yes.
Yeah, do you want to pull up some campaigns?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. Okay, let's see. We can Jack Show is the funny thing is Jack Show is already live, but Ethan's also been streaming the whole time. Just so you guys would know.
So it's a free for all.
Who's hosting?
It's party night. John is hosting tonight.
John Malin.
Yeah. So
fighting for views over here. Thank you guys for sticking around despite the strong competition.
Yes.
Thank you. We all appreciate it very much. And I'm sure the person who appreciates it more than anyone is oh shit, I gotta bring it. Rini!
Yay! I do. I'm such an appreciative, agreeable person. For those reasons, you check out Fetus Chapter 2. Oh my gosh, you hit 168. I didn't even see that. guys
What?
are
Wow.
awesome. Holy
You're
shit.
even
Damn.
70 over.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Damn. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. If you haven't seen this book yet, if you're new to this is my fantasy mystery comic. The story follows Casimir, the guy that we've been talking about. He's the guy with the sword on the cover over there. And the stories follows him as he is searching for the truth behind these weird, mysterious Lovecraftian tentacle monsters that destroyed his hometown long ago, but there's a whole mystery behind it that will be slowly unraveled over the course of the story. I wanted to create a fantasy story that had this mystery sort of backdrop behind it, and like slowly reveal the world building and everything, because I did a lot of work on the world building. Like I created a whole freaking language for this project and everything, and I've been a bit of a crazy person with like building the cultures and all, but there's a lot more to it that I can't wait to show you guys, and I'm sure that you will be very entertained by chapter 2. If you want like a preview of it, by the way, I have a free preview on the website, so go to fiendishcomic.com. I have a preview, but also like character profiles and like the species that I created for this world and the language and a world map and all kinds of other cool stuff. So if you have any doubts that I'm completely insane, then rest assured, just visit the website. And thank you. Back this book now.
Back it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I guess we're going over to Phil Diaz with
Yes.
Lost Pages 3.
We also just broke a milestone. We just got past $34,000. So thank you all who have backed this week and all have backed in the past. We're trying to make it to 450 backers, and we'll get there. And $40,000 is our next stretch goal. This is for you guys if you dig superheroes, supernatural stuff, and kind of this world of crazy cast of the Motley Crue heroes that we're building right now. The previous books are on here. You can get it in a do I not? Whose screen is this? That's not my screen.
Oh, you were wait. Okay. Oh yeah, I had them all pulled up.
Oh, my
Sorry,
bad.
Phil.
I was over here scrolling through my thing. I'm like, it's not.
Oh, I'm
scrolling.
sorry.
That was my bad. Anyways, yeah, we have the collected edition, which is all the previous stories in one awesome manga-sized book for only $20. So it's a perfect way to catch up. And this one focuses in on our character Crimstone, which is a duo, Jasmine Stone and her imaginary friend Crim. They're a crime-fighting team now. When he is around, she gets super strength. And they're investigating this kidnapping ring. Children are being kidnapped around the city. She gets kidnapped. Jazz gets kidnapped herself. She's drugged, experimented on to learn why she could see her imaginary friend. And all through this time being captive, Crim falls back into her head and has to crawl his way out, fighting all of her inner demons. Some big mofos in there. So yeah, back it. I wanted to show you guys our next stretch goal, which is the amazing trading card by Sir Kenneth Rocafort, which is right here. This will drop for all backers. Everybody's going to get one of these for free if we hit $40,000. So definitely go over here, back it, and tell your friends about it. Thank you guys.
It looks beautiful.
Woo!
Sweet.
Then I guess we're heading over to
Better than 90s comics.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like you took everything good about them and then added like even more fucking juice to it.
Yeah.
Did you guys see? Oh, I can't think of her name right now. Just slips my mind. But she's the ex-DC editor. She's pretty cool, pretty nice on Twitter. But she tweeted out. Yeah, but she said like, there's a super vibrant indie scene that is on par with the 80s, and the mainstream is ignoring it, and that's ridiculous. Something.
Oh
like that.
yeah, Valerie D'Orazio,
Yeah,
the
Valerie,
ex-DC editor that's been like increasingly based is pretty entertaining.
Yeah,
she's
she's
like,
good stuff.
follow-
She's
following
like, this
all of us.
industry is all fucked up. What are you guys doing? And like, hey, by the way, you guys have been ignoring this indie movement. That's totally great. Fuck off, mainstream.
Yeah,
Yeah, she seems pretty cool.
yeah. Cerberus 32,000, Chicken towards 33. 36, I think, is the next stretch goal. Hopefully we can reach it. We'll be open like a little less than 2 weeks, so closing pretty soon. Going to fulfill it. All the art is done. Rini might help me with some Chinese symbols for the restaurant.
Yay!
Oh,
We're going to print. And yeah, murder mystery, dog versus dog, against the backdrop of Seattle, Washington. Monica's been turning in pages for the sequel. And it'll come out next year. So I'm super excited for the whole story.
I can't wait for the
sequel has
second
some
one,
badass
man.
stuff. Part 1 is cool though. Part 1 feels pretty complete and has some cool questions set up and answered, and some cool scenes and characters and stuff. So check
Part
it
one
out.
part 1 really makes you want to get part 2 though. Like I just want to read it now.
Yeah. In my language, it would be Baucus this Bautis, means back this book.
Are you fulfilling it relatively soon as well?
Yeah, I think it'll fulfill in June. You know, I still gotta do a few little things, but the art's done. And this one, there's been like a little bit of behind the scenes interest of just from the one publisher in Europe. And then Valerie did read this one and really liked it. And I might ask her about this, but she's like, you need to have it blah, blah, blah to send to movie people for Hollywood. I was like, mate, you're in a different world. We don't get to do that.
Yeah, just
Valerie.
get ready to have it optioned so then you
Yeah.
can never do anything
Too
with
much of us. All right.
Yeah. This is not how it works, Valerie.
it. Go over to Hollywood now. We'll get it prepped for Hollywood.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I have a little project. If you guys play games on Steam, and if you have Steam, you can totally head on over to find Hollow Fist on Steam. It's a video game I'm working on. You can hit like add to wish list, and that'll be great. Like other than that, it's the world's first fisting adventure. It's like it's Pokemon for adults. It's like an RPG game with like turn-based battles. It's a big load of fun. So if you like enjoyed games like Pokemon or any turn-based kind of like strategy game growing up, and wish you had one that had like wasn't so saccharine and had like a bit of humor to it, go and check out Hollow Fist. But yeah, thank you very much.
You gotta get a mailing list up for Carnal.
Yeah. I've been trying. I'm gonna get on that soon.
Aviator Surge has an interesting comment. I know we're trying to wrap up, but he said, I think creators should read a few pages of their book so we can hear what each character is supposed to sound like.
Oh, hell
Do
yeah.
it. Do
Okay.
it. I'm trying to find that. Is that an older comic?
Y'all down for it?
Do
That'd be
it. Do
fun.
it. Do it. We
Do
could
it.
do you could do the voices.
I know the comic I want to do. It's from the shorts.
Oh,
I'm just gonna read this little list.
I need to find something that, like, what page can I read?
There we go.
I like that. But should I read book 2?
How much
Really? That would be cool.
is it bad that I like reading my own comics?
No, I feel that way too. I'm like, I reread my comics a fair amount, and I'm like, damn it, I should read other people's comics.
All right, here we go, people.
Phil just sits there and reads like all the back catalog of Lost pages like every morning.
Yeah.
Ready. Now I'll do it every, once a year or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is fun.
You know what
Is
I
that-
started reading recently is it's on my bookshelf. There's, what are they called? It's the Andrew Lang fairy tale collections. There's like the red book, the green book, the gold book, the gray book. I got 4 of them. I think there's more, but they're super awesome. These old school fairy tales, they're like addictive and they're great to read before bed because I'll read like 10 pages and get sleepy, but they're kind of inspirational for stories too because they're kind of weird or whatever.
Phil, if you narrow that window, then it'll fill up
Ooh.
the screen tall
You're right.
wise.
You are correct, sir. Is that good enough?
Yeah, looks great.
All right. So yeah, I also wanted to do. I started working on like a little animatic for this that I was going to narrate, but they'll probably never finish it. All right, we got present day Chicago, 3:30 a.m.
But Phil, which
my
of the
God.
which of the 5 voices is the narrator currently talking in?
Talking
Determined to
in.
annoy me.
All right, so you will see. I guess the deep voice, whatever this guy was talking about, for most of this, but you'll also notice repetition. And I'll only read, I don't know, like 3 or 4 pages of this because that's where the repetition comes in. Walking the city streets at a time of day when only those looking for trouble walk. Walking under streetlights that shudder, flicker, as if from day to night. When the light is off, it is just a city cloaked in darkness. But flick on, and the cloak is unraveled, a cesspool of sin and forsakenness. But I need no light to see it, to smell the scum of the city, to hear the screams of the innocent, walking in the dust of the vile. Its putrid stench fills what used to be my lungs. Yeah.
The answer is number 2, the ornate voice.
No, it's us!
Really hates the ornate.
You're gonna give me fucking aneurysm over here. Everything is ornate.
Everything's ornate.
Ah!
I guess because he
It's
knows
prosy. It's
he knows the
prosy.
word forsakenness. Here's some repetition. Lights on. Passing a closed convenience store. The lack of a face catches my eye. Who am I? The image I see is unlike nothing. It reflects these people, dark, faceless, and fearful, with no memory of my true image or personality. In my shaded face, 2 glaring white eyes, the only sign of justice in this hell. And for what? The still shimmer of innocence and hope surrounded by darkness. I must rid this scum, or the city of scum. Lights off. I do this repetition thing with this, the lights on, lights off thing.
Well, the thing is, the
Nice.
repetition is also him saying various things about himself and then saying it's about him each time. Like there was
Right.
repetition throughout that whole thing.
And then this thing, walking. I do walking again. He's always, it's just all about walking.
Yeah.
Phil, is this the short story for Silhouette to intro him that's in like the side book for the
No, this was in the first book. So it's longer than the short. The short is actually only 4 pages, but yeah. I mean, I guess I can. Anyone else want to go?
to read some of that stuff? Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Does anyone else?
Okay.
Unless you want to keep going.
It's up to you. But like the thing is, if you go to the the page where it's like him big, the full panel splash page,
Mhm.
like you have basically the more prosy stuff. Then on the next page, it changes tones to the repetition. If you'd
Mhm.
continued using the same like tone as the first page on this next one, people would be switching off. Like this page becomes engaging because you switched to a different tone and like switched to repetition.
Yeah.
And also in the paneling too, like slowly zooming in on that same head as well.
Yeah, that stuff. There's a little insinuation of a blowjob going on here. A little hooker. Here, let me just read this page. Walking next to parked cars, fishnet stockings leading to tight skirts bent over windows. Speaking of nonchalant propositions, the floral smell threatens to cure the air of the city, but it just adds to the thickness of the streets. A girl with a face caked in makeup and a man sit in a black car tasting each other. Lights on. The moral and the just are very few. Even men of honor and justice become corrupt to the inhabitants of Pandora's box. Lights off.
See, okay, it's perfect because you went back to 2 for more prose
I
stuff.
wouldn't say perfect, but thank you, Jake. Thank you.
No, but it's doing exactly what I was talking about. I'm not a fucking idiot. I had a point. It went from like prosy stuff, then you went back to repetition, and like the change between those, like across the course of that sequence, is what kind of adds a lot of the like some of the interest. A lot of the interest. It keeps you engaged. But yeah, amazing, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that
If
was
you
great, Phil. Yeah,
Thank you.
I love it.
Mhm.
I like
No.
Phil's reading voice too.
If you make if you make it narrower, it'll fill the screen more.
Yeah, like if you close the width of the window on your screen.
How do I do
Yeah,
that?
Rudy, just
Yeah.
don't make it
And
full
just
screen.
drag. Just
Oh, no, he's sharing
you're
his
sharing
screen.
the whole window.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, Phil
Yeah.
should do a reading channel. You just make an all new channel and read all your
I've done
comics.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
do it eventually.
So this is one of the shorts from the compendium drawn by Danny Cat. It's maybe my favorite, but it's like kind of unsung, and that's why I like it. But like nobody else liked it as much as me. But
Aw.
this one has like a lot of it has a like distinct voice that the guy talks in. It's kind of like it's actually almost like Whedon-y, which is okay, whatever. But I'm gonna read it. Okay. I don't use this name often, but you can call me Caperno. I survived a shipwreck, floating for 2 weeks, lost at sea, no water or food. By the end of this story, I'll have proof how I did it. I'll tell you how I did it, and I'll have proof. Once I prove it, I'll expect to win the wager and be paid in full. Agree to these terms now if you want to hear the story. The wager will be 5 francs each from the lot of you if I'm able to prove my claim. You no doubt find my claim outlandish, but proof is proof. And then they're looking at him. Do you have the payment necessary in full if you lose? I do. Whisper, whisper, whisper. Tell us the claim first. We can't wager on a blind claim. The claim is that I survived 2 weeks at sea with nothing. That's impossible. I will prove it is not. Your presence at this table is proof you survived whatever ordeal it is you claim to have endured. But how I did it will require proof. Therein lies the wager. Tell us how you did it first, then let us consider a wager. If it is an impossible task, how I did it is beside the point. I could have befriended a dolphin and swam. All that matters is proof, and whether or not there is any. I'll give you 2 to 1 odds if you take the bet blind. It's more fun that way. Whisper, whisper, whisper. We'd prefer to hear the reason first. Very well. I drank seawater. No doubt you think it is impossible. Traditionally, drinking seawater will only speed up one's demise at sea. It goes straight through. Your body can't absorb it. Correct. However, I intend to prove my claim by drinking a great amount of it here on the spot. There is no seawater to be had in this place. I will drink a liquid of equal saltiness, great quantity. There. Pickle juice? I will drink that jar in its entirety, proving my body is capable of digesting salty liquids and thusly survived at sea for 2 weeks, when by all accounts I should have given up the ghost. You'll have to buy the pickles if you want to drink the juice. Very well. Shall we, gentlemen? Whisper, whisper, whisper. You must down that whole jar and not get sick, out either end, and you have to stick around so we can keep an eye on you. I've got nothing else going on today. All right, we consent to the wager. Excellent. Bartender, 4 pickles. Bring the whole jar, the whole big jar, if you would, madam. They bring it, clunk. He opens it. My father was a pickler. Did you know that? What's that you got there? And he pulls out another jar. You name it, he would pickle it. He would travel to market every week to sell pickled goods. There was always excess pickle juice, so the old man would let me sip it. I drank so much pickle juice from a young age that I developed a robust tolerance for salty liquids. Here, and he slides across pickle juice. What's this? A sample from my private collection. I want you to understand just how salty pickle juice is. Let us give a toast to begin the wager. Raise your glasses, gentlemen. You drink one too. I'm drinking from the big jug. Pour yourself one. Very well. Here. Sip, they gulp, they all take it down. Ah, refreshing. So salty. Now, shall I have your francs ready? Here, one for each of you, on me. Mine has a face in it. Glug, 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 bump. Ah. Is it happy or sad? What? The face in the pickle, happy or sad? I reckon he's happy. Excellent. Well, now, if you don't mind, gentlemen, and he takes the money, don't worry, I'll stick around until you are satisfied with the wager. In the meantime, let me buy you a drink. Strangest thing I ever saw, the man drank the whole jar like it was nothing. Makes me wonder if he really did survive at sea. Me too. But nobody pulled a trick like that in these parts since, or any bar near or far that I've heard, and no word of a sailor named Caperno. It wasn't a traveling grift. Word spread. Nobody would take the wager if it was presented after that, but nobody revealed themselves to be a master of pickle juice in the meantime. The guy just walked out the door, and that was that. The end.
No idea which numbers.
What do
You're
you
not
mean?
going to break this down and say which.
No.
There
No.
was
So
I
much
give up.
repetition. There was so much repetition in that story.
the
there is-
whisper, glug, glug, glug.
I mean, I guess there was some ornateness, but there was a lot of what I thought was like deceptive language and stuff. What I thought was going to happen in the story is after they drank from the smaller jar, they were all going to pass out and he was just going to steal their money. That's what I thought was going to happen. But I enjoyed the story, Narwhal.
Yeah, thanks. I did that for the first draft and then I changed it.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Why do you-
wow.
Oh, interesting.
Why do you always change these things?
I don't know. Yeah, because I like it either way, but I ended up changing it to have no payoff, kind of.
Yeah, what's up with that? I feel that would have been a good payoff, but
You're like,
it
we
was-
were expecting a payoff, but you're
Yeah.
not going to get one now.
Yeah, well, the payoff is just that. Yeah, he's doing exactly what he promised. And then he does it, and
Well,
then-
that's the
That's-
thing you're talking about doing to the story that you just wrote and sent to your buddy that he sent you that note back. You're trying to make it so there's no payoff again.
yeah, I know.
So
You're subverting our expectations by
be careful with that.
by having no expectations.
Yeah.
No, that was interesting.
Is this a super sneak peek of Fiendish 2 that no one's ever seen that you're going to read?
I've shown these pages, but I haven't shown it with
Okay.
dialogue. So yeah, this is a sneak peek of chapter 2 with dialogue.
Nice.
And I'm the not real writer here, so I hope y'all are ready. Hope it doesn't suck too much. Okay. Should I establish this scene? I feel like
Do you mean
Pretty-
describe it?
pretty
No.
straightforward. No? Okay. All right. So all I'll say is this is narration, and I have the character's narration color coded, and the purple ones are Yomi, so you would know this at this point. But it's like starting out, it's a funeral scene at the temple. And the person narrating is her. She's like the purple girl. Okay, so it starts out saying, "First it was mother, and now everyone else." And the shaman here, she casts a fire rune and sets the fire on fire. And this page, it's just mood, Jake. I'm just letting the mood sink in as Yomi is remembering her family as their funeral pyre burns. How did it all fall apart so quickly?
Looks kind of ornate, that page.
Oh my god.
I'm going to find you. So panel 1, the funeral pyre is burning out, and Yomi, I don't have like the tails for the speech bubbles in yet, but anyways, Yomi's catching up to the shaman and speaking. Ma'am, excuse me, can I please ask to see the cold man and the boy who brought us here? And the bitchy shaman's like, ha, you want that scoundrel as a master? This is why stunties aren't allowed to make decisions. Stay in your lane. Your next master will be decided for you on the morrow. No, I can't let myself be sold again. And she says, did they do something wrong? They killed the demon. Who cares? The boy is cursed, and the big one isn't much better, but that's none of your concern. Trouble me no more, Dev. And while she's saying this, Yomi is thinking, I have to take my chances. A whipping is a small price in comparison. And Yomi she's walking through town. We established before she's trying to find Cosmere and Iskall. So she's like, I shouldn't over explain it. So she's walking through town. Iskall said they live beyond the gates. Can I do this? Is my only fate to be sold off now? I'll be made a bed slave, most like. If Cosmere and Iskall don't take me, where would I go? If I run, a lone Deveril could soon be captured and then probably raped or worse. I was lucky to have been treated so well by Halbrand, like I was human almost. It's my fault for getting too used to it. We are ruled by humans. That's just how it's always been. Yeah, should I continue? It switches to another scene, so.
Well, whatever
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah,
It is. I see what you're saying. It is very mood. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Even
Right.
throughout, I mean, if you have the narration as well, which
Yeah, you're in their thoughts, which is cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, I love that stuff, but even her narration is very mood setting.
I don't know if I like.
Not so ornate, you know.
Thank you. It's just this argument will continue
Well,
on.
in this, it's kind of it's her thoughts, so it's like her speaking as authentically her as she can. So it's
Right.
kind of like deep voice stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. I try to make it so like Yomi and Iskul, they're more just raw emotions. But like this is sort of a fairly, I mean, I can read one more page. The page after this, it would be too spoilery. But so here's kind of a contrast between, it cuts to Cosmere and Iskul, and then they kind of meet up later because Yomi is on her way to go find them at their house. So here's just Cosmere and Iskul kind of talking after dinner in their little shack, and Iskul starts out saying, "You're taking me to Thalfrin? Really? Finally, you never let me go anywhere. Because you're just going to get yourself in trouble if..." no, Cosmere says, "Because you're just going to get your ass in trouble if I do. But you'll have to meet the shamans of Thalfrin sooner or later, so it's time. If we travel fast, it'll take 3 days. We'll stop by my main cabin, pick up Nina, then turn northwest. Top of trade, I want to ask Friggy about the demons again now that we've gotten a fresh look at them. She's a master shaman from a special lineages, and she's like to know things regular shamans don't. They're really in the middle of nowhere. I wonder why they stay hermited up instead of serving a town like normal? Because they're not normal shamans. Friggy's blood is Ispalin. Oh, I didn't know the Elden ones still appear. Wait, no. I can't read my own writing. Whoa, but didn't all the Elden ones disappear? They're not actually Ispalin, genius. They just have some Ispalin blood. Okay.
Such a D-bag.
Yeah.
He's drunk too,
They
so he's
got a good
extra
little
extra
dynamic
D-bag.
going on.
Well, here's the thing. This would be who's the blonde guy? I know we've said his name.
Casimir.
Casimir, yeah.
So he's just like all about straightforward. He's got no emotion in his, like he's not showing himself to people, like you've said, you know, in his character description. So that would be the whatever high chitty chat explaining
Straight talking. I know I've used chit chat, but it's like straight talk. It's just telling it how it is.
Just, you know, telling him what's going on.
Yeah, he's very straight talk. And I try to, like, I make a point where he never says thank you or please. And he'll add like small insults, like here when Iskul, because he's 13, he doesn't know that much about even like some, you know, of their own world history and stuff. But like instead of explaining to Iskul that this so they're talking, it's this whole world building thing. They're talking about the Ispalin, which is kind of like a higher human race that has more magic, and these shamans are going to meet are Ispalin, but Iskul isn't. He's like, he doesn't, or they're Ispaliad, and Ispaliad have some Ispalin blood, so it's a little complicated. But instead of just patiently explaining it, Casimir's like, they're not actually Ispalin, genius.
Right.
So I try to like add those things in.
Yeah, a little character to the explanation. And the cool thing too is his little cousin. He could also be like a surrogate for the audience too, because he is naive and doesn't know a lot about things, and so is the reader, right?
Yep. Sort of like a reader stand-in.
Does I had the names in my head. I can't believe I've just Iskul. There we go. Iskul. E-girl. Iskul.
Oh God.
Does he also mask how he really feels by like being a bit more put on conversational? Like if he was actually sharing his feelings, would he feel differently to how he's speaking Iskul in like that scene? Like is he trying to coax information out of Casimir? Like, do you know what I mean?
Sometimes when like if Casimir gets on his nerves, he'll try not to show it, because it's like he out of everybody else understands why Casimir is the way he is. So he makes a point to be more patient with Casimir, and he will hide his feelings when it comes to that. But yeah, like he's the character that is because it's from a point of empathy, and he's like the most empathetic person. So most people would be annoyed at Kaz, and like it applies to other people as well. He's like Isko is the overly caring one. But yeah, it's still it's still early dialogue. I think I'm gonna obviously do some editing and stuff, but I hope it didn't suck. Thanks.
It didn't suck at all. It was great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing it. I didn't know what to say in reaction to it. That's all.
It's the first. It's a stream exclusive.
It is a secret sneak peek at chapter 2. If you like that, get chapter 2. That was fun.
Yeah, if you liked all this stuff, go back our stuff. The link should be in the description. And
yeah. Thanks all for sticking around. I know that you had like so many different options tonight. Jake, let's hear your barbarian voice. You mean like carnal stuff? Oh no, I have a boner. No one look. There we go. That's Connell the barbarian.
Great.
My power is activated. No one look. No one look.
Oh,
no one. It's too obvious. It's like in everyone's faces. Stop looking. There you go. That's Connell the barbarian. Stop looking at my shape shifting. Anyway, thank you all for
Classic
sticking around.
Connell moment.
Yeah, hashtag classic Connell. I genuinely I feel like I stumbled a bit through it. I genuinely hope that you guys on the panel did have a couple of takeaways, and the guys in the audience, like, it was engaging to some extent. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for sharing this time with us. And yeah, like, go check out everyone's campaigns, and we'll see you next time
on Phil's next time, right?
Yeah, next week is on Phil's.
Okay.
On mine, I had an idea. I have an idea for a topic. So yeah, or the idea might change. So stay tuned.
Cool.
Yeah, maybe you should. See you on Phil's channel next week, guys.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.